American football in Finland.
The voice in your ears is Perfect Pervis, and welcome to another episode of American Football in Finland. I'm here with my co-host, Q Floyd.
What's going on?
And we have another great show lined up for you today. But as usual, before we get into football, how was your weekend, Q?
Hey, weekend was great, man. Another exciting, fun weekend of nothing but hotness over here in the desert, but some good football, so it was a good weekend.
Yeah, for me, weekend was all about fantasy football, like we were just talking about before we started recording. Spent the weekend getting my league together that I'm the commissioner in. It's called The League because I was very uncreative in making the league name. Going on year 15 this year, so we've been doing it big since my freshman year in college. Also woke up at 5 a.m. this morning to draft a team in a league I just joined where we have to draft 35 players, offense and defense.
Wow.
Took me 2 hours for that draft this morning. But
that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, fantasy football is life, man. It is what it is. But yeah, that's how my weekend went, fantasy football. Before we even get into the Maple League, just want to shout out to the Women's Maple League that's going to be playing their championship this weekend. The Helsinki Wolverines are going to play against St. Petersburg Valkyries. I think that's how you say it in the championship game. So Perfect Purpose might make an appearance. We'll find out. Game balls. All right, let's give out some game balls from the weekend. Q, who impressed you this weekend?
Gerard Johnson, man. He had a pretty nice game. He scored a lot, obviously. But I think he had a real bounce back performance. But he gave his team a win that they definitely needed. I won't say needed, but it was a strong win from them. Strong game for him. So my game ball went to Gerard Johnson.
Yeah, I agree with that on Gerard. I think it was a game that they didn't necessarily need to win, but it kind of helped prove the situation with what's going on in Kuopio. It's hard to win in Kuopio if you ain't the Kuopio Steelers. And that's what they do. Like almost all the games that they've lost, they've avenged themselves in Kuopio. They lost to the Butchers in Porvoo. They lost to the Wolverines in Helsinki. Both of them they avenged, and Gerard was a huge part of that, making sure that, this is our house. Gerard Johnson's going to do his thing out there. So that's awesome. My game ball is going to go to the same guy it should have went to last week. Or actually, I think you picked him last week. But Christian Powell, again, over 200 yards rushing. Actually, I'm going to look up the stats because, I love looking at stats. 232 yards. I literally, I thought about saying the same thing as we said last week and saying that he ran all over the Wolverines because he did. He was out there and they didn't have anything for him and he just really dominated. And that's 2 weeks in a row. He's at over 200 yards. He already was the leading rusher in the league. Now he's just kind of separating from the pack. This game was kind of a statement game for him as well, with his team being at home and then avenging a loss that they had on the road. So this week, my game ball goes to Christian Powell. All right, first topic we're going to talk about. We kind of hit on it a little bit already with the game balls, but first topic, Gerard Johnson makes an MVP statement. Okay, let's just put it out there. We didn't put him on our top 5 last week. Probably was a mistake. But you know how it goes. You got to be relevant. And we kind of take Gerard Johnson for granted because he scored so many touchdowns. But his team is really up and down. But what he did in this game was he put an exclamation point on his candidacy for MVP. He's one of the top scorers in the league. He has the most touchdowns out of anybody, both receivers, running back situation, not quarterbacks because they get all the extra passing touchdowns. Has, I think, 27 touchdowns total. He's scored in every game they've played this year. And in this game, it was no different. He had 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing, one receiving. He runs a post route, catches the ball, scores. He did everything that the Steelers wanted him to do, and he was great at it. There was no flaw in his game this weekend, and it's really a good way for him to kind of wrap up the season. I know they still have one more game, but in Kuopio, doing what he does best, which is score touchdowns. That's what he's done the most this season. Even when he came out the gate in the first game and scored like 4 or 5, he's a touchdown machine. He's a big play highlight player, and that's what he did in this game. And it reminded us. And again, Gerard, if you're listening, we apologize.
We're sorry, Gerard. We're sorry. I know he felt a certain kind of way about us not putting him on there, but he showed up this weekend, and now you back on there. So I mean, he in the running.
That's what it is, guys. I mean, if us talking and giving our opinions about this sport can motivate you to do better, I mean, we're gonna keep doing it. The Royals proved they don't deserve a playoff shot. Now, I got a lot to say about this, but I'm gonna let you go first if you have anything to say about it.
Whoa. Royals.
They let them get away.
They let them get away. Oh, man. This is the closest game, obviously, the Roosters have played this year, besides the Crocodiles game.
Well, and the loss, but.
Well, and the loss. I mean, the first game of the season, I don't really count that. I know coming into this game, maybe the Roosters probably didn't expect the Royals to come out like they did.
Yeah,
I think they came out, with a game plan. They actually was scoring with the Roosters. A few times I thought the game was like over, but then again, as long as Alpha July is on the other side, it's always a game, man. And this was an exciting game to watch. The Roosters definitely pulled it out, but by a little thin breeze. But the Royals, man, games like this is when you're trying to fight to even have a chance, or you got to just come. You got to make something happen to be able to stop these guys. And they gave up some big plays to Adam late in the game that just hurt their chances. And Royals just, maybe if Alpha was there at the beginning of the year, they could have probably stole some games that kind of help them be in a better position right now. But unfortunately, they took they still have a game left, but it's not going to help as far as the playoff race. But the Royals just didn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, they had games earlier where I was like, this is a good team. They just, not getting the right breaks. But in this game, they had every situation they wanted, and they royally screwed the pooch, in my opinion. You got the quarterback fumbling in his own end zone. Luckily, that just came out to be a touchback because the ball was out of bounds when Cam jumped on it, or that would have been a 6-point swing instead of a 2-point. And then going into the half, you got the ball in the red zone and you don't score. And you go, and then when the half comes back, the Royals have the ball and they score on their first drive in third quarter. And instead of going up, I think they went up by like 4 or something like that. I'm finna actually look at the shit. No, they didn't go up. So instead of being ahead, they're still down by 4 when they could have been up by 3. If they had scored before, or at least kicked a field goal or something, but they didn't get any points out of it. And that's just bad clock management. And that's the difference between a good team and a great team, is knowing how to handle that. With 3 minutes left in the game, you think, okay, the Roosters get the ball, they're going to milk the clock and take this lead, this 11-point lead they got to the half, or I think it was 4-point lead at the time. And the Roosters score. They put their foot on the metal, they score and say, hey, now you got 2 minutes to score. And the Royals bounce right back because they have a good team. I still believe like the team is good. They have the potential. But if you're not accustomed to being a winning team, and that's what this team is missing, is they're missing a lot of winners. They got a lot of good talent, but I take away Alpha Jallo and even Zachary Blair. He did really good. He's been a really fresh breath of air. But take away those 2 guys, and who's going to lead? Who's going to score? Who's accustomed to winning? And you got a lot of like role players who are good, but someone has to put them in the right position. They're on their 3rd head coach this season. So obviously they don't have any direction, any plan. This whole season has been a whole bunch of up and downs. every week is look different on both their rosters and their play calling, both offense and defensive side. Everybody's playing different positions. I mean, in the middle of the season, I was thinking, okay, maybe they make a playoff push, but this game really showed it. And playing against the Roosters of all people, if you can't make those big plays when you need to against a team like this, in a situation like this, where you have nothing to lose, I didn't even see any creative plays. I didn't see anything that was, unexpected from them, and they still were in the game, which shows that they're good. And I know it sounds like I'm like talking in a circle, but they kind of remind me of what the Crocodiles looked like last year, where they could play well at times, but you just knew it wasn't ever going to gel in time for them to make playoffs. And that's how the Royals looked in this last game. And against the Roosters, this season and even last season, when they play the Roosters, they just kind of say, we just want to be close. Because they've played the Roosters close for the last 2 years. And again, they don't win the game, but they play them close. To me, that just means you don't really want to be that, top team in Finland. And I'm disappointed by the way they played this last game, because I feel like they should have won that game, or at least had a better chance of winning it.
That to go back to that drive you were talking about before the half, Alpha didn't touch the ball not one time out of 4 plays. So I think that was just mostly like play calling in that situation. Obviously, you got a mobile quarterback, so him dropping back, I don't think it was the key. I think this is where you put in the rollouts. This is where you run the fly sweep. This is where you run the option. Give yourself a chance to where you have where you feel like our guys can get in the end zone. I mean, they were on like the 2-yard line, 3-yard line,
something like that.
Against the Roosters. Against the Roosters, you just gotta be able to take advantage of that situation. And I mean, for Alpha to touch the ball not one time during that segment, that just hurt. And then to end the drive on a sack before the half, like it was just. I mean, the Roosters just pinned their ears back and came off the ball. Like, obviously, everybody knew what was going to happen. Like, I knew what the play was going to be. Like, your quarterback is going to run now, obviously. But those are the type of situations where you have to take advantage of, because then you come back out in the second half, and then the Roosters score. And now you down again. So it's just the Royals just have to get consistent coaching all year.
Yep.
For some reason, these last few years, they've been in the hunt. They've been in some good games. They've been close to making runs, and then it's just like they just need to have that consistency of players and consistency of coaching when it comes to this part of the season. And I think if they can do that, then they may be able to actually stay in the playoffs, year by year.
Yeah, I think them not making the playoffs this year. I mean, in theory, it means they should make some changes. But in reality, I'm not sure they're going to make the necessary changes going forward. But we'll leave that alone. But in this game, they just showed us that they're not a playoff team. Like, a playoff team, any other playoff team that was that close to beating the Roosters would have beat the Roosters. That's what I think. Now we're going to talk about the other game of the weekend, and surprisingly, not nearly what we thought it was going to be. The Wolverines finished the regular season, kind of. First, let me just disclaimer. I literally just found out today that it didn't matter if the Wolverines won that game or not. And it didn't matter if the Crocodiles won the game or not. Because if the Crocodiles and the Wolverines, even this week, if the Crocodiles win and they have the same record as the Wolverines, the tiebreaker isn't about the points of the 2 games they played against each other. The tiebreaker in this league this year is about quality wins. And so let me explain how weird this is to anybody who doesn't know, because I just found this information out literally today. Quality wins means who has beat better opponents. So the Wolverines have beat the Kuopio Steelers, and the Crocodiles have not beat the Kuopio Steelers. Therefore, if they both have the same record, the Wolverines have a tiebreaker because they beat a higher-ranked team. Same thing if the Steelers and Wolverines hypothetically, to have the same record, the Steelers would get the nod because they beat the Roosters, not because they beat the Wolverines by more points.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
And with that being said, the Wolverines came out early in the game. You could tell they were going to lose, and at halftime they packed it in. And personally, I feel like I got robbed. I mean, my Rutu don't cost that much, but I know one thing: if I was a fan at the game, or if I was playing on the Crocodiles team, I would have felt like I got cheated. Because you could tell that the Wolverines in the second half, they put out Jabari and they were losing by 2 touchdowns. And Rojo was done. They started sitting players. Will Young didn't play in the game because of an injury. He was taking more of a rest than an actual, like, he's hurt. And that's because they went into the game knowing that it didn't matter if they won or lost it. And for me, as a enthusiast of the sport, I don't like that. I don't know how to say it without, like, coming off as an asshole. If you're going to play, play. But if you ain't going to play, don't play. If that makes any sense. The Crocodiles went out there and played their ass off and then had fun with it. They did the JB special, the reverse pass that went to Jonathan Baker. They had a good time, but in reality, the other team was like, it's okay because we already know we're in the playoffs at this spot and whatnot. So I feel like when you have one team playing that way and the other team, playing the ass off, you get this lopsided score. It's a blowout game, and you don't really find out what really happened. And for me as an enthusiast of the sport, that shit pisses me off. And I wish the Wolverines, if anything, just don't start your starters from the beginning. Don't give me the facade that you're going to play the game. And then in the middle of it say, oh, yeah, we're done. We're going to take our ball and go home.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think being a fan, everybody wanted to see the second time around. Obviously from what happened the first time they played each other, the Crocs did get better. I think everybody wanted to see, how they would match up against each other, even though, I'm not saying they can't play each other in the playoffs. I mean, anything can happen. But obviously the Crocs wanted this game more. They're in the zone. The Crocs are in the zone. 3-game winning streak. They're in the zone right now. They got confidence. They're celebrating. This is the type of energy you want going into the playoffs. Now the Wolverines, I'm not gonna say they should be worried, but when is the last time they won?
It's been a while. They lost 5. They lost 5. They had a 3-game losing streak, and then I guess
exactly. And it's to the point now where the Wolverines are in the playoffs because they won early. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to really fight. They didn't really have to fight and dominate the second part of the season. They won early. They put themselves in the position, and that's just what happens in Finland. Sometimes you win early and you're in the playoffs. And the Wolverines are one of those teams where I don't know right now what team is going to show up against Kuopio in Kuopio.
That's so funny because you just said it, like they won early, and literally they lost to all the other playoff teams in the second half of the season. And for me personally, what kind of confidence does that give you going into the playoffs? Like
none.
This game against the Crocodiles, even if you weren't trying to win it, there's a lot of things you could have done to prepare for your game against the Steelers. You have a bye week on the last week of the season, which means you're not going to get to see competition before the playoffs. So if during that bye week you're practicing, it's not going to be like what you got from the Crocodiles, and it sure the hell ain't going to be like what you're going to get from the Steelers when you see them. So, I mean, to me, it's reminiscent of those Peyton Manning teams from Indianapolis when they used to lock up the playoffs early and then rest Peyton Manning for like the last 2 games of the season. And then they get in the playoffs and get their asses beat because they were just a little too rusty. To me, that's what the Wolverines look like. I'm sorry. 5 losses from the roster that y'all put together this year, that's abysmal. I don't understand why they're okay with that. But obviously they are. They're okay. Let's just get into the playoffs and then see what happened.
Yeah, because it's not to cut you off, but
go ahead.
That's exactly what it's about. At the end of the day, I mean, from both sides of it, you wanted to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Now the expectations are to win in the playoffs, and with the games that they've lost, there isn't any confidence and this is a team that I picked to win the whole thing. So obviously for me, it's hard to say. They make me nervous coming into this playoffs because they just haven't played good against none of these teams the second part of the season. And it's like, okay, the team that we seen early, is that the Wolverines or is the team that we seeing now the Wolverines? Maybe
it doesn't
maybe
even matter
everybody
though,
was it
because
doesn't
the
matter
team that we
now.
saw earlier played against these playoff teams that were different earlier. It's like, okay, you beat the Steelers early, but the team that beat you and the Steelers, that's more likely what you're going to see in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's a Kuopio environment. Obviously, Kuopio's been to the Maple Bowl. They know that for one, they got to establish Gerard Johnson in this game early. If they can get Tino to get to go deep, I mean, the game plan obviously I think for the Wolverines right now is to stop the run. It should be to stop the run. Let Seth go to those receivers where you believe the Wolverines are matched up better than they should be matched up better than the Kuopio Steelers receivers.
Yeah.
Gerard Johnson is the X factor in this game. He's going to be the X factor in the game. The one thing I will say the Wolverines have the advantage on is amount of players who've been in these type of games.
Mm-hmm.
They have the veterans who have been in these type of games. These are games that I've seen Robert Johnson, Cedric Johnson come in and ball out and win. So I know those guys are going to come play. The thing is, defensively, Wolverines, can they stop the run? Because Gerard Johnson, I'm 100% sure is going to touch the ball at least 25 times in this game. Whether it's passing, whether it's running the ball, maybe even more. I'm saying 25 rushes.
Yeah,
like he's a receiver. He's gonna touch the ball a lot. I mean, the Wolverines have got to. I think in order for the Wolverines to win this game, they have to go up early and not play from behind, because that's not something they're good at. So they have to go up and score early. Make Seth have to throw the ball early. I'll save the rest of my game planning for the playoffs, but. The Wolverines just have to they have to do something different, because, like you said, everybody else that they've lost to has gotten better, and they just haven't gotten better. I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think they've gotten better, but they have the type of players that can score at any given time, so that gives them a chance pretty much in any game. And I think coming into the playoffs, they just got the veterans. You know what I mean? Like I think those guys are gonna have to have monster games in order for them to have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much getting into the playoffs, so let's just drop into that now. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, the 4 playoff seeds are locked in. You got 1 is Roosters, 10-1. Steelers are 8-3. Wolverines 7-5. Crocodiles 6-5. Everybody got games except for the Wolverines this week. It's going to be Roosters versus Crocs and Steelers versus Wolverines. I mean, we're not going to get too much into it, but what do you think of some things that we're going to see from those matchups? This week of games is a waste of time, first of all, just saying that.
Yeah,
so.
This week is, I don't even care who wins in these games right here, because the playoffs is the most important. But I think the Crocodiles is probably going to be the most interesting game, the Crocodiles and the Roosters. I think the Steelers and the Wolverines game is going to be good, but I don't know Roosters and Crocs. The way that Christian Powell has been playing as of lately, if some kind of way they can keep Miro from getting as many possessions as he gets, and Nandi, Adam Conner is hell anyway. Like that's going to be their matchup problem. So I feel like the Crocodiles defense have to come up with a plan to somehow minimize how many times Adam touches the ball and minimize how many big plays Nandi gets. I'm sure Kari is going to play this game at running back, so they're going to be full force on that O-line, running the ball, passing the ball. The Roosters are used to this game. They are used to this game. Like this is to them. This is like the championship game. Like they play every playoff game like it's a championship game. So that's how they're going to come into this, because they at home. They want to get that next championship. So the Crocs are going to have a big. Coach Malley is if he wants to make a statement as far as what he plans to do with this team. It's got to be more than just making it to the playoffs this year. It's got to be like, all right, this is the game that you wanted. This is the game that you recruited for. This is the game that you told all your players, your import guys that you brought in. This is the game you wanted to get them to, and now you got them there. You in the 4th seed. It doesn't matter if it's 4th, 3rd, 2nd, or 1st. You got the game you wanted. So let's see now how you guys are going to match up. Let's see how you're going to play. Let's see if Jonathan Baker is really going to make plays with his feet and his hand and his arm. So it's the game that I'm looking forward to the most out of these 2 games.
I definitely agree that the Roosters Crocodile game, that's the game to watch. I mean, for me, I really just think the home teams have a huge advantage in these games. Crocodiles are driving all the way from Seinäjoki. Wolverines are going all the way to Kuopio. I think the home field advantage is a huge thing for these playoffs, and I think it's gonna favor both of the home teams because both the Roosters and the Steelers have been really good at home this year. So I don't see either one of the other two teams being able to just come in their house and just throw them off their game. You know,
get it off your chest.
All right, it's that time, my good man. We're gonna say what's on our minds. Let's get it off our chest. Q, what you want to get off your chest today?
Hey, I don't want to brag. I don't want to boast. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated in the preseason right now, sir.
Come on.
I just want to remind everybody what's going on out here right now. We back, baby. We back.
Preseason champs.
I'm crowning this right now. I'm crowning this.
Well, for me, shoot, I don't even think I got nothing to get off my chest. You know what? Actually, what I do want to get off my chest is that college football is around the corner. This weekend, it starts. I know last weekend there was that one game, but I'm more concerned with the Ohio State Buckeyes. We rank number 5 this year, so we probably gonna slide into the playoffs if one of these damn Big Ten teams don't beat us again. We always lose to like Penn State or somebody and get knocked out at the end. So, I mean, we got the new quarterback who's supposed to be the ish. I drafted Dwayne Hoskins from the Washington because I think he'll take Case Keenum's spot. So I drafted him in my fantasy. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to get off my chest. Go Buckeyes.
I hear you.
All right, let's talk about the MVP candidates again. I think we're just gonna keep this going up until the I think we'll announce our MVP right before the championship. So let's just kind of do a winding down. Last week we had 5 guys. Now we've cut it down to 3. I mean, no, not 3. Sorry. Now we've cut it down to 4 guys, and with us cutting it down, we also can replace guys. So I'll put the names out, and then we're going to talk about all of them. Miro Cadbury still on the list. Christian Powell still on the list. Alpha Jallo still on the list. New to the list, because he deserves it, Gerard Johnson. So those are 4. Next week we'll only have 3. And then before the championship, we'll just name the top 1 who we actually deciding on. So these are the 4 guys that we're thinking about. And even before we get into it, let me just throw out an honorable mention, okay? We're not ignoring Adam Cornette and Nnamdi Agude, okay? We're not ignoring, but with both of them being really good, it takes away from the MVP, discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's hard to say that one of the receivers could be an MVP, and then if you say both the receivers and the quarterback, and it's hard to make the argument because Adam Cornette has 20-something touchdowns and is leading in receiving yards. Agude has another 20-something touchdown and is second in receiving yards. So you got 1A and 1B. Y'all are both great, but to make the MVP candidate, it's got to be the most valuable, not the 1A and 1B valuable. That's all I'm saying about that. So I'm going to get into the first candidate that was on the list, and this is my horse in the race right now, Miro Cadbury, the quarterback of these 2 receivers that I just bragged about. And again, I'll say the same thing. His stats are up there. He's number 1 in pass touchdowns, number 2 in yards behind Rojo. He's number 4 in completions, and he's number 1 in pass efficiency. And that efficiency is what sets him apart from everybody else. Miro gets the ball to his playmakers and goes about his business. That's what I want from my quarterback. Someone you can depend to get the ball to your playmakers like Adam Cornette, Agude, and even Kari. He even does a nice handoff. God damn it, I like it. And that's what makes Miro an MVP candidate this season is that no matter what, all the stats, he's breaking all these records for being the Finnish quarterback, throwing 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns a game, all that blase. Miro is still Miro. When you look at him, he don't look like much, and he's cool with that. And that's what I like about him. Miro is Miro. He go out there, you see him on the sideline, they're having fun. He's high-fiving guys. He's high-fiving backups on the sideline who probably never get in the game. because he knows that they've been putting in work and practice together and that they're all winning together. He's a bona fide leader of this team. And for me, being a leader of one of the best teams in Europe, you have to be that glue. And that's what really makes him an MVP candidate for me this year. I'll let you get the next candidate you want to talk about. You can pick anybody off the list. It doesn't have to be in this order.
All right. Well, I'll start off with Gerard Johnson. He's been playing consistently good all season. He is a running back that you want to have on your team, somebody who can make big plays happen at any given time. Excuse me. For this Kuopio team, he's, like you say, Miro was the glue to the Roosters. I believe Gerard is. Without Gerard being in that backfield, Kuopio probably don't survive some of these games. This dude is actually single-handedly took over drives. He took over games. He's made some of the biggest plays that Kuopio's had this year with the amount of touchdowns that he's had. Obviously, that's what you want from your running back. You want him to be able to get in the end zone. And he's done that well with the yards, having almost 1,300 rushing yards, 27 touchdowns, receiving yards. He has like 243, one kick return, almost 2,000 all-purpose yards. With those type of stats, that type of guy, team, Gerard Johnson is obviously the MVP for the Kuopio Steelers. As long as he's healthy, they have a chance to win every game. Going into the playoffs, I do believe he will be the X factor in whether they win or lose their semifinal game. As long as he's healthy, I think they got a chance to beat anybody. Pretty much, it's all when they beat the Roosters the first game of the season. A lot of it was because of what he was doing, and he still has that juice. He hasn't got tired. He hasn't got beat up. I think he's really ready to show something, prove something. He has a chip on his shoulder, so he's definitely a standout for the MVP. I believe if he plays great in this next game, I don't know if they're going to play him in the next game, but if he stacks up some more yards, some more touchdowns this next game, then it might be hands down who the at least one of the top two MVPs are, and I believe he'll be one of them.
I agree with you 100% on Gerard, and that's one of my hometown favorites. I'm speaking of the juice, I'm gonna talk about a guy who his nickname supposedly is Juice. I told him I can't call him that because I know another guy named Juice before I knew him. But Alpha Jallo has the juice. They call it Jallo juice. I mean,
okay.
We went through all his stats last week. Obviously, he hasn't played enough games, and again, he has one more game left. Even in his last game, he did his thing. He was unstoppable when he was given the ball. Just really wasn't targeted the way we expected him to be targeted. But what Alpha has done in this league is similar to what Gerard did when he first got here. The first couple of weeks, Gerard Johnson was all I could think about. I was like, this dude is scoring. He's constantly like making plays. And Alpha has been able to do that at a remarkable rate in a very short period of time and against every team he played against. Even when they played against the Roosters and it was close and he didn't have the type of game that we would have wanted, but me and you, we talked during the games. He was putting in work out there. We're not going to throw nobody under the bus for what he did, but anybody that goes against him gets worked. And
worked.
Work. And that's MVP. Like we said last time, like he has speed, explosion, change of direction. His motor is never stopping. And again, as I said earlier this year, he just went to the wrong team. But that shouldn't exclude him from being an MVP candidate because he was here for a short period of time. He hasn't been here for a short period of time and just had one or two good games. He has consistently been great every week he's been here. As anytime he touched the ball, it's greatness. He got 8 touchdowns off 22 catches. Almost 600 yards on 22 catches. Get out of here. He's averaging almost 30 yards a catch. And he has return touchdowns. He has an interception. He plays defense, all-purpose yards. He'd be in the top 10 if he had played enough games right now. And if you double that by him playing a whole season, he'd be undoubtedly number one in every statistical category. And obviously we can't play hypotheticals, but with Alpha Jallo, the proof is in the pudding. I could talk about stats all day, but if I turn on the tape and you watch it, your jaw's gonna drop. And if that's not valuable, I don't know what is. To me, that's valuable because he's standing out as, look, put me on the field, we got a chance to win. Look at what they did against the Roosters. He's on the field, you got a chance. And that's what makes Alpha Jallo one of the most valuable players in this league this year.
I definitely agree.
Definitely. What about the last guy? Who you got?
Christian Powell, the hardest runner in the league, the strongest running back in the league, the most important running back to the Crocodiles team. I mean, he's the juice for their team. He is the Terminator. I mean, if this dude if he gets over 200 rushing yards, and majority of those games they're going to win. If he gets to the end zone more than 2 or 3 times, they're probably going to win. Coming into the playoffs, if I'm playing against him in the playoffs, I don't like. You're going to have to pack your lunch. I'm just going to be honest, because I think Coach Mattingly is going to really feed him as he's fed him all season. He's been consistently playing good all season. Definitely the in the running for the MVP. Also, from his stats, 1,500 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. Could have been more, obviously, but they spread the ball around a lot. Over 2,000 all-purpose yards. You can't ask for more than that from your running back. He could do it all return. He could play receiver, and I think he's going to do a lot of that in that playoff game. But as far as the MVP, Christian Powell's name has to be in that category. Has to be in the top 3. Undoubtedly one of the best players in the Maple League. Undoubtedly probably one of the best running backs in Europe. So luckily we got to see him these last 2 years in Finland, and from his film, from his stats, you can see why.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was going to say, all 4 guys that we've named, if you put the film in and just watch the player, take off their name, don't know who they is, put in the film and watch the highlights, not even the highlights, just watch the first quarter of the game, have them in the clips, and you immediately know that they're standout players. You know that they're doing something to make something happen for their team. All 4 of these guys are those type of players, which is why it's going to be really hard to pick the best one, but it's not a difficult situation in saying that one of these 4 is definitely the best in the league. With Christian Powell, I always like to pile on because, I'm a fan of the running backs, being a former running back myself. Christian Powell, what he really does great that I still feel like no matter what he's underrated for is his versatility. Yeah, he runs the ball hard, but he creates space in the passing game. He runs swing routes and gets the ball. He goes from receiver to running back and motions in and out and confuses the defense. He plays decoy sometimes. He throws passes. On a JB special, he takes a fake snap like you think it's a running back keep, and then he tosses it to Cutlin, who throws the pass. Like, he's the pinwheel for the offense. He can do pretty much everything, so they're able to feature him in different ways and also use him as a decoy. Like, he makes this team run. And it's because of the fact that you can't just put him at running back and say, okay, all he can do is run. If we put 8 or 9 in the box, we can stop him. You can't. You can put 8 or 9 in the box, and he can still get outside the tackle box and play as the slot receiver or something and run a route and get the ball. Or he can throw a pass on you. You put 8 in the box, he runs a sweep, he throws it over top, touchdown to, what's his name? Wilson, number 8. He likes to run that route. And for me, what Christian Powell brings to the game is almost immeasurable because his intangibles is so varying. And last thing I'm going to say about Christian Powell, then I'll, stop being so nice about him. These last few games, we said he's had over 200 yards. I think it's over 230 in both of them. Big shout out to Michael Mattingly and the offensive coordinator from the Helsinki Crocodiles. They've made some changes on their offensive line. They've improved their offensive line. And what you've seen from Christian Powell is he's went from getting 100, 130 yards a game pretty much because he was already getting his yards. He's getting 100 yards. But now he's getting closer to 200. And you're like, oh, my gosh. If you're a great running back, that's all it takes. A little bit of fix here. Let me get a better right guard and a better left guard. And all of a sudden, instead of having to make 8 people miss, I only have to make 3 people miss. And I'm 6 yards downfield when I do it. And that's the difference that I've seen in the last couple of weeks is that now that he doesn't have to make everybody miss from the point of attack of getting the ball, his plays and his yard per carry is going up. And that's because he's such a dynamic runner. Instead of having to make, like I said, 8 people miss, he only has to make 3 people, which is what most running backs have to do in the first place, is make a few people miss. He's been behind the 8 ball for the beginning of the season, and I even remember a time when you said that you were disappointed because he wasn't the guy that we saw last year. And I'm just pointing it out that I watch offensive line play, guy. I'm not an offensive lineman, but but I am a running back or was a running back. So I pay attention to those little things that the running back needs to be successful. Every running back starts with the ball 5 or 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So you're behind. Every yard you get, add 7 to it at least. And for Christian Powell, that's almost 1,600 yards times 7, right? That's how many yards he's running to get his yards. So just kudos to the Crocodiles offensive line unit getting better. They moved some people around, made the right decision, and it's shown by Christian Powell being able to actually lead them a little bit more than he was earlier in the season. That's all I'm going to say about that. Sorry for running long on it.
Cheers to the freaking weekend.
All right. Maple League teams are, well, I usually say back in action, but this week really doesn't count for anything. Not one of these games has meaning. But just for, shits and giggles, Thursday, the Royals go to the Butchers. Friday, the Steelers host the Roosters. And then the Crocs and Saints play on Saturday. Later today, our panel of football experts will pick the winners from the games, and the picks can be found on the Podium Facebook page and the Perfect Purpose Facebook page. As of right now, going into the last week, I think it's still actually the winner's still up in the air because Tuomas Heikkinen is 26-10. Finland Suomi is 26-10 also, so they're tied. And then I'm in third at 24-12. And Q is bringing up the rear at 22-13.
I've been robbed. I've been robbed.
Yeah, well, it's tough either way, but this week is going to be the hardest week to pick. Not one of these games counts. There's no one wins or loses. The playoffs are set. The games are already being posted on Facebook. I already got my invitations. So it's going to be very difficult to figure out. Royals play at Butchers. What are they playing for? Nothing. So do they both tank it, or does one team say, well, we're going out with a win?
I think that's going to be a good game. I think that's going to be a good game, though. I think they both just going to try to have fun. I think Alpha July is going to probably try to, going to go off. I think they win or go off. I think it's going to be a fun game, just like, all right, we had an exciting season on both sides. The Butchers more disappointed than the Royals, but I still think it'll probably be an exciting game anyway.
Didn't they just play each other a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
So, and that was more of a counted game, too. And I think the Butchers won that one, right?
Yeah.
So, for the Royals, it could be a get-back game. And then you got Steelers and Roosters. And that's interesting because you got 1 and 2 playing each other. Now, the Roosters – obviously you don't want to, lose to a team twice in the season, but at the same time, both of these teams are going to be like, well, we don't want to show them what we're going to do in the playoffs. And we don't want to get hurt. So, I think this game is going to be super filled of backups and boring as all get out.
Yeah, I definitely think the Roosters are going to play a lot of their young players the whole game. I know it doesn't matter whether they win it or not, being that they're the number 1 seed. Knowing Mikko, Miro might get a drive. It'll surprise me if I don't know who the backup quarterback is right now for the Roosters. We haven't seen one, I don't think, pretty much all year. So
I know they got some young kids. I just don't know if they're going to be at the game or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be they could just decide. All right, Miro's not playing. Adam's not playing. Namdi probably will play.
I think Adam plays. I think Adam plays quarterback and running back.
If Mikko's is like, I want to win this game, then Adam is probably going to play. But I wouldn't play Adam. Me personally, I wouldn't play him. He's been playing hard all year. I wouldn't play him just for the simple fact I just do not. You cannot go into the playoffs without Adam Cotton. So
true.
I wouldn't play him at all. I let him rest. Namdi, I would play. Miro, I wouldn't play. So I'm gonna let my young receivers. I'm gonna let those guys get some feel. Let my backup running backs play. I wouldn't really try to have too many of my starters on offense out there anyway.
Yeah.
Because Kuopio, Seth Peters probably will play. That's the thing about them.
They don't have another quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, so he has to play. I think you just kind of try to survive the game. You know what I'm saying? No matter what the score is, just know, all right, this is a game where we get our young guys to get some some play. And you can evaluate them.
I think on the Steelers side, you're going to see Aku Otala. He's been playing defense for them, but I think they're going to bring him back to the running back spot. Either that, or you're going to get a heavy dose of the fullback Ville Linston at the running back side, because I think the Steelers are going to just say, "Hey, let's just grind it out on offense."
Yeah,
because they're not very deep at the receiver position in the first place. So they can't really afford to use backup receivers and still try to toss the ball around.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna definitely try to just run the ball. Now this last game on Saturday, Crocs and Saints. Ugh. I mean, there's almost nothing either of these teams get from playing this game. And I mean, the Crocodiles there's nothing they can do about winning it, but I also don't think that they're very deep behind their starters, especially at the receiver position. I feel like they only have a few guys besides those guys that can play anyways, so they have to play their starters. I mean, you can run Christian Powell into the ground in this game, but I don't think you want to, like you said. I mean, if anything, you want him fresh for the playoffs. And then on the Saints side, I mean, shit, you ain't got nothing to lose. They got the Finnish guy can come out there and toss a few balls. CJ, I can't say his last name. He's going to try to get his. Munchie Roberts is going to be out there balling. I think the Saints this might be their second win of the season.
Yeah. If I'm coaching the Crocs, obviously Christian Powell won't see the field.
Not at all. Put your hat. Put on your Ginger Joe hat, because that's y'all sponsor. Shout out to Ginger Joe.
Yeah.
If you want to sponsor the podcast, we could use a sponsor too, Ginger Joe. Put on your.
I like those hats too.
Yeah,
I like those Ginger Joe hats. They're pretty nice. Quarterback. I don't think Jonathan Baker should play the whole game. You can probably have him out there, handing the ball off to whoever, or trying to get a little more chemistry with Patrick Wilson and the other guy. I can't think of his name right now.
Stefani Fortes.
Yeah, Fortes. Try to get those guys some little more confidence out there. Spency can play. Obviously, he can just kick or whatever. But I think the Crocs I think they do want to win this game. You still want to go into the playoffs with the momentum. That'll be a 4-game winning streak for them. That's a great feeling. Going into the season. Going into the playoffs like that. And I think he just let Christian Powell rest. Amir Kalani definitely plays. He needs as many reps. He needs as many reps as he can possibly get before he go against these receivers. So
he played good last game, creating a lot of forced fumbles. He was stripping the ball very well.
Yeah, he was aggressive. Now he's an aggressive guy. I give him that. There's a coverage. We need to be able to count it. Definitely this game. Forget about what happened during the season. Now you have a chance to go against these guys again, and let's see what you do with it. And I think the Crocs just try to get out of this game not having any major injuries or anything like that. They don't have a lot of depth, so I think they want to get in there and run the ball and run the clock. The Saints probably want to, if they can pull off a win, they'll pull it off. But other than that, it probably won't be much to watch in this game.
Yeah, this whole week is kind of going to be a wash. Just want to throw this in there too. I think Cutland made a 47-yard field goal in the last game, and he's been trying to kick 49, 50-yard field goals all season. So I'm pretty sure they're going to try to get a 50-yard field goal or a 51-yard field goal in. So that should be interesting to see if he can make it. His percentage is shot, but he's trying kicks that almost nobody else is doing. I'll be honest with you guys. Next week, I don't think we're even going to really recap this weekend. I think we're going to jump into the playoffs next week, man. Because I'm going to watch all the games just to see what happens. But we're in playoff mode now, so we'll definitely just jump into the playoffs next week. Maybe have a couple interviews if we can. That's it for us on AFF this week. Q, any last words before we get out of here?
Oh, no, I'm just waiting on these playoffs, baby. Let's get to the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. So I hope everyone enjoyed the show and will support us by subscribing or following AFF on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Podbean. Whichever platform you use to listen, just show us some love and never forget
TIF.
American football in Finland.